You know, I've known Ben Bankus, the Toronto-based comedian, for a long time. I remember during the lockdowns, he tried to do outdoor comedy to get people laughing, and he would set up with a PA system in a park to get around the rules against closed buildings. He was a bit of a dissenter back then, and he showed some entrepreneurial spirit. And Ben, over the course of time, has gone over to big things. He's sold out tours, not just in Canada, but actually mainly in the United States. He's a hit. He's a popular success. And I can only presume by the size of the crowds and the number of gigs he has that he's a commercial success too. That's how it is in comedy. Most people just simply don't hit that level of success. So you got to tip your hat to Ben. And it's no surprise that he's really made it big in the States. Most Canadian comedians, when they make it big, they go to the States. That's half the people at Saturday Night Live in New York City, including the boss of that place. Well, naturally, the government-funded comedians at the CBC state broadcaster hate success stories like Ben. They can't or won't even try to make it out on their own. The idea of a government comedian is an oxymoron. It's a contradiction in terms. How can you be punk rock? How can you speak truth to power if you're cashing a check every week from Mark Carney and you work for his state broadcaster? It's just a contradiction. And so I think there's a sort of a sullen jealousy, the losers at CBC Comedy, when they see someone like Ben make a success, especially given that Ben is conservative. And Ben is controversial, no doubt about it. But he's been on a tear, and sure, maybe it's worth talking about if you prefer talking about jokes rather than hearing the jokes. And that's, I think, my criticism of the show I'm about to go through with you. What I'm about to show you is a CBC panel of 3 people, 2 of whom purport to be comedians, talking about Ben Bankus, but never actually showing his jokes or telling you what the jokes are. But nonetheless, they spend 15 minutes condemning those jokes. There's the host of the show, and he has 2 comedians, one of whom refused to see the show, but accepted the gig to come on the CBC to talk about it for 15 minutes. How on earth do you even do that? Well, I'll show you. I want to play for you the entire 15-minute conversation. This really is the blind leading the blind. How can you have a host of a show interview a guest of a show about a comedy routine neither of them has watched? Well, it's the CBC, and all they need to know is they don't like conservatives, and they certainly don't like Jews like Ben Bankus. 2 of the 3 people in this conversation are Muslim, and they complain a lot about Islamophobia. Ben Bankus does the opposite. He mocks Islamist terrorists. I think that's the real reason he's hated. But without further ado, let me take you through 15 minutes of CBC talking about comedy they never even saw. Here, let's play the tape.
You already know that comedians are supposed to push the envelope. That's the thing that we go to comedy for. That's what we want our comedians to do, to make us think about the world differently.
Now, let me stop you right there, because I think we may have a difference of opinion on what comedy is about. I don't go to see comedy that often, but when I do, I go to laugh, not to be challenged on how I think. I don't regard most comedians as deep public intellectuals. Some of them, like Tim Dillon, do riff on current events. But I think that's when people start to applaud them as opposed to laugh. I prefer my comedians to make me laugh, don't you?
He's originally from Toronto, and has kind of become known for material that's a little bit racist and sexist and transphobic. And he began to sell out a lot of dates after he made this joke on stage about Renee Good. Renee Good, of course, the woman who was shot and killed by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. And the thing about the idea that the outrage is the thing that's bringing people to the door, that's something that's interesting to me. Like, what is the draw to see someone like a Ben Bankus? Well, Ali Hassan is here and Ann McMaster is here. Ann McMaster actually went to see one of his shows in Toronto in order to report back on what that audience was like and what Ben Bankus' work is like. I got so much out of this conversation. I hope that you do too. Hello, both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice
Welcome
to have
back.
you here. Thank you so much. I got to tell you, we asked both of you to go see the show, and you were like, sure. And then, Ali, you were like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm going to start with you briefly. Who is Ben Bankus? And then why did you say, no, I'm not going to this show?
I'm not going to go see it. All right, that's your right to be a little bit pouty. It's a little bit thin-skinned for someone who calls himself a comedian. But how do you take a gig. I don't know, maybe they paid him $500 to come on this podcast. It wouldn't surprise me. Now, that Lapu Lapu thing is, just for those who don't know, there was a terrible crime. Someone drove a vehicle into a group of people in British Columbia, and it was actually a horrific mass killing. And both the victims and the perpetrators were Asian, and it was deemed not to be a terrorist incident. There was a mental health element truly involved. And so Ben Bankus apparently said he should have done another Lapu Lapu, another lap. I don't know. I didn't see the joke. I only heard people partially retell it. But yeah, a lot of comedy is black comedy, and part of comedy is laughing at dark things. I mean, gallows humor, funereal humor. That's the best they got here. I'll just give it away here. Spoiler alert. They don't actually come up with anything else. They don't actually quote Ben or any of his jokes. It's really weird. Listen to this story, though.
Let me just tell you in a story. Last summer, we have a party in my backyard with my son's baseball team. One of the mothers shows up, says, I heard you're a comedian. We went to see a comedian recently. Do you know Ben Bankus? And I do know Ben. I've worked with Ben over the years, and but I keep quiet, withhold judgment. I go, yeah, I know Ben. And she says, we actually had to leave.
Oof.
Now I'm interested. Tell me what happened.
Yeah.
Why did you leave? And she says, well, the best way I can describe it was it was just like a mob mentality. So I said, tell me the moment when you left. She said, well, he told this joke. She says, do you know about the Lapu Lapu Festival in Vancouver? And you know what had happened there? Somebody had sort of mowed down.
Yeah, several people killed last year.
Yeah, exactly. And so he tells a joke about, so this happened at the Lapu Lapu Festival. And now I'm paraphrasing because I wasn't there, but he makes a joke about he should have taken a few more Lapu Lapus around the block.
Oof.
Crowd cheers. In their row, this baseball mom, in her row, somebody yells, kill them all.
Yeah, I just don't believe that happened. I don't believe that a soccer mom came to his barbecue. That was oddly specific. It sounded a little like Jussie Smollett saying, I was walking in Chicago at 3 a.m. and some guys came out with a noose and said, you're in MAGA country. Yeah, no, I don't believe that barbecue story with the soccer mom happened. And I don't believe she said, the crowd said, kill them all. And I don't believe it happened at all. I simply don't believe it. But that's how you fight against conservatives if you're with the CBC. You make up something and attack that straw man. They don't invite you to watch Ben Bankus' comments. They just make up an incident, but not even about Ben Bankus himself, but someone who was in the crowd in a double hearsay. Just awful.
That's why I didn't go see Ben Bankus. In summary, that still bothers me to now. You know, Filipino community
me just hearing this story.
Is in mourning. Good, decent Canadians across this country are in mourning, and that's the type of joke you make. So that's just not my. That's not my cup of tea to make a gross understatement.
All right, so it was a bad joke, maybe. I don't know. Why is he even on this panel? I don't understand that part. Shouldn't you know something about or see a show before criticizing it? That would be like doing a movie review, but saying I refuse to see the movie, but I'm going to condemn it. It's really weird.
So here's the thing that you and I have in common is like this, when we hear, like the first time that I heard of Bankus was this sort of Rene Good story, and we'll get to that bit in just a moment, quote unquote. But that was my first time going, I don't think I want anything to do with this. I'm not sure the kind of audience that this person would draw. And thank you for going to the show on all of our behalf, because we did want to talk to someone who was actually like physically there. Talk to me about your experience at the show. What was his performance as a comedian like? What was the crowd like? Tell me.
So the host refused to go too. I get it if some loser comedian didn't go, he's making a stand. Why he's invited as a panelist, I don't know. But you're the host of this panel and you refuse to go too? What is wrong with you CBC people?
I mean, first of all, maybe next time you could send me to something sort of more fun, like the dentist.
You are owed that. You are owed that, at least.
It's okay. I'm working on my self-loathing.
Yeah, okay.
Self-loathing, eh? Yeah, I believe that.
It was interesting. And I admit there was a bit of like car crash curiosity for me to go see this show.
Yeah.
What I observed right off the top was, you know, he's a person of size, but he's got a really small stage presence. He takes up very little space on the stage, kind of hangs out towards the back. very little eye contact, like always looking over to the side. And then he's got this big pop that he just dives into. It's almost like his security blanket. The other, I won't comment on what he said, but I can speak to the structure of what he
So I was
said.
going to say, it'd be hard to be like, tell us some of the jokes. I don't want you to do
I
any
don't
of that.
wanna- I don't
already
wanna
I'm not
repeat it.
interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
You won't comment on what he said? I don't understand.
What was interesting to me was that there was no self-deprecation in his jokes. Like a lot of comics will warm themselves up to the crowd by making shots at themselves.
Yeah.
And he didn't do any of that. All of the jokes were what we call punching down. So targeting people with less power, women, immigrants, indigenous, the Bad Bunny show.
So Ben Bankus punches down. And of course, great comedians on the left always punch up. And mostly what they talk about is Donald Trump. Trouble is, it's clapping comedy, not laughing comedy. But I don't know if you heard that there. They mentioned Bad Bunny. I don't think anyone in the world knew who Bad Bunny was other than people who like Spanish language rap until about a week ago when he was the halftime performer at the Super Bowl. Here's a quick clip of Bad Bunny, just in case you don't know.
Yo perreo sola. Ay, ay, mueve, mueve, mueve. Yo perreo sola, perreo sola. Okay, ay, ay. Mi día anda fugado y yo quiero que tú me lo escondas. Agárralo como bonga, se metió una que la pone cachón.
So Bad Bunny is an incredibly successful rapper. He surely got paid $1 million plus to be in the Super Bowl. How is it punching down for Ben Bankus to make fun of a millionaire privileged rapper? I don't know. You got to have new talking points if you're on the left, or maybe talk about what Ben Bankus actually said.
It was pretty wild to see this technique that he has where he will drop the most racist, misogynistic line and then wait. And once the audience laughs, he's like, see? Then he jumps in. So it was very interesting to watch how he worked the crowd.
That sounds like maybe barely working the crowd and hoping for a response from the crowd. But I suppose that's sometimes what that job is. I mean, got to tell you,
Yeah.
Ali, like he's got sold out show in Kitchener next week. He's been moved from next month. Sorry, has been moved from a city-run performance arts center to a private venue because a lot of residents had protested.
Now, I found this disturbing. The fact that it was in a government facility that canceled Ben Bankus and he moved to a private facility. It shouldn't be that way. If you're in a government facility, you should be protected by the Charter of Rights, which applies to all government, that they can't pick and choose based on your political opinion. They can't cancel you because they think you're unfunny. If you're in a private facility and your contract allows them to kick you out, I suppose that's fine, private property. How is it acceptable that the government says who can and can't use a public building based on if their jokes are funny or not? I think that's actually really dangerous. The panel here didn't see any danger. They'll never be kicked out of anywhere, that's for sure.
When CBC reached out to comment for him, I just want to read you this quote. This is a quote. This is a statement that the CBC got from him. Ben Bankus is proving that following your dreams and speaking your own truth resonates with millions of people, even if that truth is seen as harsh or abrasive. As a comedian, what do you make of that?
You know, I think Ben, people of his ilk, and there are many other comedians like him, they believe they're speaking truth to power, and they believe at some level that they are some type of, George Carlin, Bill Hicks type of, reincarnation. And this has been said by many people many times. Dude, George Carlin would hate you. George Carlin would absolutely despise you and everything. Those were men who actually spoke truth to power. Power felt ashamed hearing the jokes that George Carlin made about them. He exposed people in power and talked about how they were corrupt and how they were. Going back on what Anne's saying, this is all punching down. This is easy pickings. It's low-hanging fruit. I don't consider it good comedy. There's no actual joke writing going into the bulk of it. And look, Ben's roots are racist from the beginning.
So he just went on a minute-long attack there, calling him racist, but he didn't actually watch the show. How do you do that?
What he discovered during the pandemic was this impersonation of Theresa Tam that he did, really really struck a nerve with a lot of people who were like, I'm feeling, I don't want to get vaccinated. I want to not be able to go to my job. I don't want to have to do this. And so he struck a nerve, and he's really sort of capitalized
to come after a
on
public
that.
health official
Yeah.
that was seen by people every day on TV
Yeah.
because she was explaining what's happening with COVID. Well, that's one avenue that you can go.
Again, punching down. Public health officers like Theresa Tam, that's not punching down. Public health officers were not only extremely well paid. Theresa Tam, by my memory, made over $400,000 a year, just a staggering amount of money. But put aside the money, the amount of power they had, just with a flick of their wrist, to lock down entire school boards, to lock down all sorts of businesses, in some places like Quebec, to bring in curfews. You literally couldn't leave your house between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. To think that these are powerless people, they were the most powerful authoritarian people in our society. And Ben Bankus can't make fun of them.